is always simple truths. Simple meaning uncomplicated, truth meaning conforming to reality, indisputable. And having worked with people like Doc and Marshall and that, Paul Hersey is a guy, one of his simple truths about the importance, the critical nature of acting on purpose. That to me is a simple truth, that I can behave on purpose. As a guy with 3 daughters and a wife of 33 years, it's surprising how long it took me to realize the value of, that looks nice. If you think about it, you can. I mean, most people, and even guys, are trainable. That's simple. Most of us, we can learn to act on purpose. And that's what I mean by assisting on that concept. Because if I think about what your job is, your job isn't about being the best one. The traditional paradigm of leader is copy. I mean, at one time it was leader is copy, and you policed the functions under your control. And then a lot of you, there is another role called leader as coach. And many times it's you're teaching and coaching other people into doing things. Why? Because you're the best one at it. Well, let me give you a clue that in many cases, you're now starting to supervise people that probably know more about what they're doing than you might. And it's kind of hard for me to coach. I mean, I've got people that work for me that, hey, I've got a clue how they do, web-based things and putting it in. I think Christy was talking about, she's not the most technically adept, and nor am I. So we're getting to the point that if I can do nothing else, it's bringing out the best in them. That's my goal. What we're going to do is, in fact, sometimes, how many of you know somebody that where there's been a performance issue? Maybe not in your teams. Yeah, she's going, I don't care. I'm saying it doesn't matter. Yeah, where you know where there's a performance issue and it's not being addressed. And how many of you know of those issues that are going on for a year or more? Absolutely. This is what I mean. If you think about the difference between the 30% club, proud recruiting members of the 30% club, because they do like company. And the difference between that and 80%, which is what you can expect in a sustained fashion, that's your return on leadership. So if I'm looking at why am I doing this, why do I care about taking the applied behavioral sciences and putting them within the context of business, I do that because it's the difference between getting 30% and 80%, almost external combustion. The externalization of events, meaning that things happen to us. My friend Forrest would say it happens. Yeah, that's right. That happens. If you look at it, things happen to us, and he says, you know what, Don, we can't predict it. We can't even think of it. We can't even imagine it, let alone predict it, let alone control it, let alone prepare for it. What does that mean to you? If this world, if change has become a component of externalization of events, what does that mean to you as a leader of others, as a manager of others? I don't know, but I don't like the sound of it. It means that I got that idea of adaptability, that idea of resilience, the idea of, you know what, how many of you got kids? Any of you have 3? You know what they say about having 3 kids? It's like making pancakes. No, it is, because you kind of burn the first one. It's true. Yeah, those of you that got 3 kids, yeah. And in fact, my oldest always introduces herself. Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm the birthday. Anyway, but if I look at this idea of change and externalization, it tells me that kind of adaptive paradigm is what's going to serve me. The idea of me having all those answers. The idea, how can you have if you're at Ford, how can you have the answers at the ready for a tsunami in Japan that takes away your paint? How can, if you're working for Malay Airlines, or if you're working for Boeing or that, how can you prepare for, I kind of lost one. Seen some junk off of Australia, might be it. Not sure. Where I'm going with this is your role. Is it going to get easier? And if you don't, if that bothers you, Get out of the leading business. Get out of the business of having other people, of being responsible for the output performance of others. That's where he said, David, there are in many cases more children with phones than books. And matter of fact, I think it's about 10 to 15% of us have cell phones that we don't tell our spouse significantly about. Now, were you raising your hand, or were you both of her hands? I thought maybe she's got two of them. So, as the more we connect technologically, the less we connect personally. That same research that was done that same research from the 70s on was constant in terms of levels of empathy, levels of how much we understand and care about each other. In the year 2000, it dropped by 40%. 40%. In other words, we care less about others. We try to understand others less. 40% less than we ever did. And they do the meta studies every 5 years, 2005, 2010. Still down. It's not going up anytime soon. Where I go with this is that the X factor in that is empathy. It's not ego. For you as a parent, trust me, I burnt the first two. As a parent, it's empathy, it's not ego. As a leader, it's empathy, not ego. Sometimes it's a little different. In healthcare I work, though, there's some people, I'm not saying ego goes away. There's a balance you need to figure out. In healthcare, we'll have people that, because they're clinical, they're nurses, that are caregivers by nature, they get into healthcare. Sometimes there's problems, there's not enough. There's too much empathy, not enough ego. And what's the problem? They don't hold people accountable. So I'm not taking one and eliminating the other, but what I'm doing is saying that empathy connection, all you got to, if you can maintain that, is the X factor to your leadership.